Hey y'all, I'm Alex with Soil Mesa, Georgia, and I'm out in the garden today, and today we're talking about what is the best soil mix for container gardens. We get this question both on Instagram and here on YouTube in comments. So today we're finally addressing it. But we get the question because people ask how we're able to grow such a prolific garden all in containers. Susie and I grow almost everything in containers. We have tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and watermelon and cantaloupe and pumpkins and blueberries, and everything grows in a garden, and it all comes down to what the best soil is to start with. So today we're sharing our favorite soil secrets. Stick around. This is our basic mix, and sometimes the ratio of which one has more or less changes, depends on what we're planting. But the basic mix is a raised bed potting soil, perlite, vermiculite, and or sand. And this time I'm almost finished with my vermiculite. So I'm going to use some of it. I'm going to use some of all three of these. And what they do is help the soil with aeration and drainage, but also keep it from being too compact. So I like having some in there mixed in with everything, especially when you have something like the manure, because that can get really hard. But when you mix it with all the vermiculite and perlite and sand, everything, it keeps it loose. And then some peat moss also. The peat is good about helping to keep the acidity lower, so it helps with the acidity. And most of what we grow, whether it's tomatoes, peppers, watermelons, cucumbers, pumpkins, everything needs to be under 7. Almost everything we grow does. And then I usually start off with 10-10-10 fertilizer to get everything going. So that's the basic starting mix, and then here's how we mix it all up. All right, so now I'm starting off. I'm going to start putting everything in this mineral feeder bucket from the farm. That's what I just made into the self-watering container, but we have a spare one and I use it to mix everything in so that I don't have layers, uneven layers in there, and it just feels better to mix it that way. So I really just take everything, and I don't have a specific ratio I use. That's like when we first started out, I used to literally measure everything and do like 5 parts of this, 4 parts of that. Now I put it in basically because of Susie's influence, and it all works. And I know that by adding stuff in a little bit at a time, everything just kind of works itself out. And you can be surprised by how much of the perlite and vermiculite it uses. And I don't have a ton of sand left, so I'm going to use about half of it, or about that much. Look at all the dust from there. So you want to stand downwind when you can, because that stuff is nasty to breathe in. So I'm going to be doing 2 of these containers. I have one container down here from last year that I'm reusing. It already has soil in it. But for this year, I'm adding 2 of these self-watering containers, both for watermelon. And I want to keep it a little bit more balanced in each one. So I think I'm going to end up doing both of them at the same time. And I almost forgot where I was because I'm talking too much. And the peat is one also that it's like a dust storm dealing with this. If you want to come in, Susie, and show how dry that is, and that'll give me a chance to breathe. Nasty. Then I'll take this and just stir it all up. It's like baking a cake here. And that's why I like doing it here, because if I was pouring all this into my final container, especially with the self-watering container, I'd be afraid that I would mess up. And let's swing over here. If I was dumping it in here, I'm pretty sure I would hit this and break it or just mess it up, but I'll be able to dump it in there easily. I think to have good results. And just when you think you have it all mixed, you hit another pocket of sand or something else. But I just roll it over and turn it. I need a big whisk. And I think I forgot something else. I use the perlite. I want to add some vermiculite too. And look at the difference of how that is compared to the perlite. So they act a little differently, but in essence they both help with aeration and drainage. So that'll be another video maybe when we talk about the differences in them. I like to use both of them to get both benefits because they do have different the different benefits for each of them. But yeah, I just hit a whole another pocket of perlite in there. And this is where I start just messing with it, and see, because it's almost, and I guess it's just from experience, you have to see what works, but whoops, there's a certain look I want with it when it's finished, and so I start with kind of the basics where I know I want some of everything, and then I add more of anything I want. And since these that I'm making now are for watermelon, I'm going to go a little bit lighter on the peat. It does need a lower pH, under 7. It doesn't have to go under 5 or closer to 5 like blueberries might. Blueberries heavy on the peat moss. Watermelon, I'll do heavier on the manure. And then I also have this compost that I've been cooking for a while. I just took it out of my compost tumbler over there. But this is almost broken down, not completely yet, but it's pretty rich in there. I'm going to put that more on the bottom, and it's going to keep breaking down. So by the time the roots get down there, it should be good. And it doesn't have to be all the way down to this kind of mix to use compost. It can be still in the breaking down stage after it's, not immediately, but after it started. And that's starting to look pretty good for my mix. So you can still see a lot of the perlite and vermiculite, like the white stuff, that's the perlite, and the vermiculite's a little bit darker. But it's starting to look like a good blend. And even after doing this, since I'm using 2 containers, I'll do a little bit in each of them as I go, because I can't quite reach the bottom of this now. All right, so starting off, especially with the self-watering containers, I like to have a good layer on the bottom of some of the soil. So Susie, if you come over, since this fabric is in here, the key to it is keeping the soil not going down on the sides as best you can, but have it more on top of it. And then as you water it, this landscape fabric is porous enough that the water will go down in here and drain fine from the drain hole over there. I can add to it from here, but also if it rains or anything, it doesn't just puddle in there, it can drain through. And so I'm trying to get on both of these just a layer of this good soil mix in there, and that's going to hold it in place. And like everything in gardening, it doesn't have to be precise. I'm just kind of getting it in there. And now that I have that pretty good, now I can come over and go for this crazy nutrient dense compost. I'm just going to put some in each of them. So my idea is when the roots really get down here, there's this layer of dirt already in here. I think there's some worms that were in here earlier. I don't know if I'm going to be able to shovel any of them in. It's going to keep on breaking down and mixing well. So that's going to be, as the plants mature and they're further away, as I'm fertilizing on top, there's going to be a whole nother layer of good nutrients on the bottom for them to get to. And there's no set amount on this. I'll mix this in a little bit. I don't want to have I don't want the roots to go from one type of soil all of a sudden hit another one and have a shock. So I'm going to mix it in a little bit, but I want more of this compost. Oh, here's one of the soil mates. Told you there's some worms in here. He's wiggling and ready, so he can keep on doing his job down here. I will try not to hit him with the shovel. So now I've got, do one more scoop of this. Now that I have that in there, I can add some more soil in, and I want to mix that soil in there, like I said, so it's not heavily a transition, but a smooth kind of easing into the different types of soil. And then I'll cover it up all with the top type. Now I'll actually just get in here with my hands. And sometimes it's easier not to use the shovel, and especially in that one where I have the worm. I don't want to risk chopping it up. But if I can mix those two layers together, see how it's all rich? That's good. I'm getting some down on the sides. It's not too bad because it's still held on. I want to keep it out of that tube in there the best I can. That's looking good now. All right, so I'm going to go through. I don't have to show you all these steps, but we'll come back to show the finishing of getting the watermelons planted. All right, I have two different varieties. I've never grown these. Last year I grew sugar babies, but these are both big watermelons. They say they go to 20 to 30 pounds, both of them do, and they're supposed to be spaced 6 to 8 feet apart. I have them in containers so I can space them however far I want. I'm going to put 3 seeds in each because I want to make sure something germinates, and then I'll thin it down to 1 and go from there. I have these 2 containers that I have out in the yard here, the ones I just built and filled with soil. Then I have another one over here. Let's see if we can swing over here without, let it go. It'll get there. There we go. The gimbal is a little bit tricky sometimes with the movement, but I have this one here. This is where I had cucumbers last year, so I'm going to plant here and put the cucumbers further away. I want to keep the cucumbers and the watermelon apart because I've heard somebody last year, one of our viewers, said that it can taint the flavor, so I want to keep away from that. So I'll put some in here also, but I'm going to start over here. Now it's starting to rain, so we're going to go quickly. Which one am I doing where? One of them had longer, now torn through it. Oh well, this one's, I'll put the giant leader over here, and they only go a 1/2 inch deep. Well, 4 came out, so I'm going to put 4 in here. And I'm just kind of putting them all towards the middle since I'm going to thin it down to 1. And see, and actually even put some at different heights in there. And sometimes I'll throw a seed up there into my brush just to see if something will germinate if I have an extra one in my hand. What did I say? That was a giant leader. Already forgot. I think one of the reasons I like doing these videos is so I know what I planted where. Oh, these look very different. Look at those other ones are white and these are really dark. That's what I used to see in a watermelon. So maybe these will be the ones that are more familiar looking. They're both red flesh in the center, so it should be pretty basic. And I'm really trying to rush with the camera out in the rain. All right, and then I'm going to come back through and put in some fertilizer. I'm using 10-10-10. I might have to do that after the rain stops. And I'll go put my cucumbers down there too. So thanks for joining us. Appreciate y'all watching on a hot, muggy day in Georgia. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. If you have any questions about our soil mix, please let us know. And if there's anything that you do differently you think we could benefit from, let us know that also. Thanks again for watching. Bye.